I'm Shannon, and today I'm kicking off a special mini-series, something called Do Something. Over the next few episodes, we're diving into the power of action and the small stuff that people tend to avoid. Not because they don't care, but because it's complicated, emotional, and downright uncomfortable to face.
This is the Compounding Change Podcast, sharing stories of small but meaningful changes that compound into amazing impact. Brought to you by Shannon Davis and DavisCompoundingChange.com. Change happens fast. Take advantage. Discussions on this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Retirement Plan Advisors LLC, a federally registered investment advisor. Cambridge Investment Research and Retirement Planning Advisors are not related to DavisCompoundingChange.com or this podcast. Now, here's your host, Shannon Davis.
I'm Shannon, and today I'm kicking off a special mini-series I've been dreaming up with someone very close to me, my sister Jenna. You've seen her here before, but we're doing something called Do Something.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So glad to be here. And I'm Jenna. I work with executives and leaders who are navigating that messy middle of change. Things like communication breakdowns, emotional burnout, that quiet feeling of, is this still working for me? And while retirement may not be right around the corner for all of us, the truth is it brings up a lot, right? It brings up a lot about identity, responsibility, what we're building forward. And this conversation today, it's personal for both of us, for both Shannon and myself. And I have a feeling it might just hit home for you too.
Absolutely. I would think so. So let's name it, right? This can be really uncomfortable conversation. I mean, so when most people think about retirement planning, like you were saying, they're picturing vacations, freedom, maybe sitting on the beach, not Medicare, powers of attorney, wills, or talking to their kids about death. We just had some of that conversation this past weekend, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing is by the time we're ready to talk about these things, it might already be too late to take meaningful action.
Yeah, right. And that's what this Do Something series is all about. It's really about helping us move from avoidance into action, right? Taking that big, overwhelming stuff and breaking it down into something that you can actually do. It's just one intentional step at a time.
Yeah. As we've talked about before, I think it's often helpful to give real life examples of situations versus just telling somebody this is what you should do or, hey, this could happen, because that's not real yet, right? And it just so happens that I have a pretty recent real life situation.
Yeah, right. Because that's when, and it was pretty recent, right? Just like last year, in particular, where you're flying back and forth. I remember this from Ohio to Oregon.
Right.
And it was for your mother-in-law's situation, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like you said, about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, Jeff, my husband, for those of you who don't know, and I got a call from his mom's husband that he was sick and he couldn't take care of Karen, Jeff's mom, anymore. And like you said, we live about 2,000 miles away, and we knew that Randy wouldn't be calling us and saying such a thing if it wasn't really serious. So that night we were talking about making travel arrangements, and then we also got a call from their neighbors that Randy was in the hospital, and then of course so was Karen, because here's the thing, his mom, Karen, had Alzheimer's, so they couldn't just take him to the hospital and then leave her home alone. She couldn't make decisions for herself, didn't really know what was going on. She couldn't take care of herself. And so when we got to Oregon, we were relieved to find out that they did actually have powers of attorney in place and a will, albeit a little outdated, but sufficient. She didn't have a current driver's license or state ID. The thought of transporting her across the country was daunting, to say the least. And honestly, we'd never really talked about any of it. We lived in different states, and right or wrong, we actually didn't think it would be on our shoulders. Her husband, Randy, was 12, maybe 13 years younger than she. And so we wrongly figured he'd be her caregiver and make the decisions. I mean, we obviously knew she had Alzheimer's, but we thought it was kind of their thing. All we'd ever heard from Karen is, because she was obviously aware that she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, is don't ever put me in a home. And then we're sitting across the country trying to figure out what now.
Oh my gosh, right. I remember how like intense that was for you too, right? And it was
Yeah,
like super emotional.
very.
It's not because it wasn't like just the logistics, right? I mean, that's mind-boggling too, because you both have jobs, you're both working full time, and now all of a sudden all that caregiver giving just kind of comes into being and trying to figure out how to handle all that so can be really disorienting. And it's also deeply personal, right? It's not just like, oh, there's a lot of stuff to do, but there's so much emotion wrapped up in all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that I know that people are going through at our age. People are dealing with this, right? It's something though that no one really prepares you for. You hear the stories, like I said, but the emotional capacity it takes to be a caregiver, even when you're not the one physically providing daily care. I can't even imagine the day to day if it's in your house, but you're still
Mhm.
managing someone else's needs while wrestling your own fears, definitely guilt and
Oh,
grief.
oh yeah, right. And the fears, it's not just about the person you're caring for, right? Sometimes you face your own mortality, right? It's about your own aging. It's watching someone you love decline, and when you're in that moment, it brings up so much stuff that you probably didn't even realize was just waiting for you below the surface.
Yeah. Well, even this conversation obviously brings it and makes it
Yeah.
emotional. And then even, I know we were talking this weekend more
Yeah.
casually with our parents, and we're so blessed to still have them. But yeah, you go from being a daughter or son to the decision maker. And for parents, that shift can feel like their autonomy is being stripped away. Even the healthiest relationships, it's very difficult. And of
Yeah.
course, and of course, I'm one to want to give advice too, but we all know people want to be helpful. We were given plenty of advice, and of course, people thought that she should just go into assisted living, that was the natural thing to do. But you wrestle with your emotions on that. Also, people were like, "Oh, move her across the country." It's not that easy
Yeah.
when somebody doesn't have that driver's license, and we're dealing with incontinence and mental de- decline. It's not just that easy to put somebody on a plane or to drive 38 hours across the country. How many stops is that, right? For me alone, it would be a lot. But to take care of her too, that was a big deal. And I know people mean well, but unless you're in it and actually experiencing it, legally, emotionally, financially, you don't always realize how not helpful that advice can be.
Right. Well, in because here's the thing. It's when so often you're already in that really challenging place and you're battling your own overwhelm and a whole host of feelings and the emotions around that. When you are on that receiving end, you are already maxed out,
Hmm.
right? That you're grieving, you're overwhelmed. It's that kind of shoulding, and I say SHOULD. Let's be clear about that. I
You
should be
made that
doing
up.
this. I should be doing that. Yeah, I did. I just make that up.
Right.
No, it might feel like other things too, but it all of that. When you put that should on you, it's a judgment piece, right? It's adding pressure, and
Hmm.
and that's where maybe I went. If we could we just kind of pause and just talk about what happens to us, like that, the neurology, the neuroscience behind like our emotions when we're overwhelmed, right? Because it's like when we're in that caregiving crisis or dealing with a major life challenge, our brains often operate in what we call that survival mode, right? It's
Hmm.
that the prefrontal cortex, right? This part here in the front of your brain is responsible for the planning, the reasoning, and the decision making. But just when we need it the most, it seems to take a back seat, right? The emotional centers of the brain start firing way more intensely, right? And in grief, that's when we feel this fogginess, where it's forgetfulness. We could feel easily irritated. And let's just normalize that because, like, I think sometimes if we understand what's happening in our brain, then some of that other judging or the shoulding, um, we can calm some of that inner dialogue to be like, oh, I should be making this decision more quickly, or I should be more clear about this. Like, why am I not thinking clearly, or why did I just make this decision and um, it just wasn't the right decision? Is because our brain is trying to survive.
Right.
And when we're moving through all of those emotions, and yet in that moment, it's another part of our brain that really needs to be activated. And so just let's give ourselves a little grace and compassion
Yeah.
through some of that.
Thank God I thought it was menopause, but
Well,
that
I mean, it
make
could be that,
that
Shannon,
makes
too, but
sense.
but more
Right.
likely it was
Right.
overwhelm and grief around so many
Right.
other things.
Well, I do remember being on task mode. I mean, that first
Yeah.
trip, it just it was overwhelming, and I did feel like I couldn't think clearly. And you try to categorize, think what is the logical next step, but it feels like you're just putting out fires and no time to step back and breathe.
Oh, right. Yeah. And you're, you're so right. Like task mode is necessary, right? And it's things that have to happen and you get it done. But sometimes, probably a lot of times, when you're in the middle of that, you don't necessarily give yourself or maybe even others around you permission to feel the way you're feeling. Right. And when you're caregiving, you're just trying to prepare
Hmm.
for like this stage of life, for that emotional weight that can cloud your ability and really impedes how you act with clarity. So this is why like I really believe like validating all of our feelings and acknowledging that this is a lot. Like that is the very first step toward regaining a sense of agency.
Yeah.
Does that make
Well,
sense?
and honestly, even when you do get through the fog and feel ready to take action, there's a whole other layer. How do you even start navigating the system? Long-term care, it's expensive, confusing, and as many people don't realize, it's not always covered by Medicare. And then there's Social Security, that's a whole other beast, right? You hear about that your whole life, but no one teaches you how it works and how to plan around it until it's right in front of you. You have choices on timing to take benefits and to keep working or not. If you're married, do you and your spouse take benefits at the same time? Plan for survivor benefits. There's a lot of intricacies in it. So, if you're listening and thinking this is too much, just know you're not alone. We're going to keep taking this piece by piece, and that's exactly what we'll be digging into in the next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. This is about do something. And truly, it all started from our conversations around when we're feeling overwhelmed. How do we step into just that very next step to feel like we're taking some sort of intentional action? And so, before we close out our conversation here, which was really our first intro into introducing, there's a lot going on in our lives, in
Mm-hmm.
anyone's life. So, if in any way we can offer a bit of support, guidance, or insight into what that next step might be, uh, we'd like to end with what we're going to call a do something challenge, or because this isn't part of your larger podcast, Shannon, the compounding change challenge. We'd like to offer some small experiments because taking action, even messy action, is really what creates change.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So today's step, today's experiment, reach out to a parent or an elder that you trust and ask, if there's ever a time when you can't speak for yourself, what would you want me to know?
Mm-hmm.
That's just the next step to see
Yep.
where that conversation goes. Now, for anyone who is inclined to stretch themselves a little further, we're going to offer a stretch challenge as well. Write down what they say. Open a document. I mean, whether on pen and paper or do it electronically. If the person you're talking to is tech savvy enough and you want to do some sort of a shared document, go for it. We're not going to dictate how you do it. But
Depends on how
just
old your parents are, right?
depends on how old they are, how inclined they are to technology. But just writing it down after, so you're hearing it, but oftentimes the memory changes over time, right? We may not hear it as clearly. So I do encourage you to write it down. And that one small act of care can make a huge difference later. Because remember, when things are feeling overwhelmed, when all of the emotions are piling up, that ability to access that prefrontal cortex, your brain, is a bit challenging. And so have that conversation, ask the question, and jot it down so that you can go back to it later and be like, this is what that person really wants me to know. And if you do anything, we would really love to hear about it. You can use that hashtag compounding change challenge. You could tag us, anything that might just keep the dialogue going. And it's about sharing and supporting one another. And so your courage to do something is probably just the exact nudge that maybe somebody else needs. So let's share it. Let's not just hold it onto ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like you said, this came about because in conversation, we're like, do something. Why can't you just do something through it's other conversations? So then we're like, that's a podcast, right?
Right?
Yeah. So with that said, though, we're trying to make this helpful. So next time we'll be digging into the nitty gritty, those things that you really don't maybe care about right now, but Social Security, Medicare, the systems that people think they understand until they actually have to navigate them.
Right. Yeah. We want to help you help break it down, because those can be a bit overwhelming, and it really is doable. It's just, you kind of need some little nuggets to know what you're looking for.
Right. Right. Yeah. And repetition. I mean, saying it over and over again, or telling somebody in a different way. Every time I talk to clients, just kind of reword things, say it in a different way. So hopefully we're going to break it down enough and keep repeating ourselves, and we'll be of some help with that. So thank you for being a part of Do Something from Compounding Change. Every small step adds up. So keep showing up and keep moving forward. You're doing better than you think, and the progress you're making matters. So we'll see you next time.
This has been the Compounding Change Podcast with Shannon Davis. If you are a firefighter or first responder, you know that change happens fast. Life changes, finance changes, compounding change. Shannon Davis is a certified retirement counselor who understands the needs of Ohio Association of Professional Firefighters members. Click on daviscompoundingchange.com to learn more. Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Retirement Plan Advisors LLC, a federally registered investment advisor. Cambridge Investment Research and Retirement Planning Advisors are not related to daviscompoundingchange.com or this podcast. Please note that investment involves risk, and no statements made in this recording are indicative of future performance. The Compounding Change Podcast is brought to you by Shannon Davis.